one of the things I wanted to talk about was the history of the left, and especially workers' unions and their relationship to mass migration. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how that's changed.
Well, I would say up until pretty recently, the majority of the left, I mean, there were always like advocates for open borders, and there were more like anarchist politics within the left too, but I'd say the majority of the left up until very recently, you know, generally took the view that employers can, you know, one of the reasons that business tends to be very pro-migration is because it means they can import low-wage labor, and
just
that they
drive down the cost of labor.
Exactly, and so if business can find a very large pool of people who they can replace workers with, they obviously want to do that. On the higher end, then you also have the kind of movement of you know, a professional class into the kind of imperial centers of the world. You know, so I talk about, for example, doctors, you know, moving from the third world to big cities in Britain and America.
You're saying I think the line was there were more Ethiopian doctors.
Somali doctors.
So is it Somali doctors in
Chicago
than there is in the actual country
in
itself?
Somalia? Yeah. So I mean, that's a problem. And one of the reasons I kind of had this perspective is that I was born in America. My parents were immigrants, but I spent most of my life in Ireland. So.
Oh, were you born? I didn't know you were born in the States.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah. So I saw it kind of from both sides, because Ireland has had a chronic problem with outward migration for 200 years. And it is a real problem. Smaller countries, developing countries, you know, often through public wealth, train their own engineers, their own doctors and so on, and they all just leave. And that's a huge problem. There's all kinds of problems like that that are just not being talked about in any way, because if you try to discuss the issue and you're doing it in any kind of serious way, you will eventually run up against the fact that you have to either defend the existence of nation states or take a radical libertarian position.
What I find interesting is, like, there's nothing that you said there that I don't think does not merit, you know, a conversation or a rebuttal or something like that. Whereas I feel like with immigration, especially now, it's if you bring up those kinds of questions, then it's automatically, well, you must be against immigration because you're a racist, you know. And it was interesting reading about, you know, a very famous workers' rights, you know, unionizer, which was Cesar Chavez, who was a Chicano American,
anti-immigration,
you know, to the point where I've always said, you know, I read stories about them, you know, beating up migrants who were coming over the border because they were competition. What are you guys? Where are you guys on the immigration?
On beating up migrants.
On beating up migrants. How many could you beat up?
Let's make the most painfully out of context clip that could possibly be used to destroy everybody in this room.
I feel like it's not a subject I know enough about to have a really informed opinion, but I was interested in your thesis that, you know, the sorts of people who make these arguments are sort of elite, more upper middle class and above, and to the extent there's an effect on labor and wages, it's at the bottom end. And it's not someone like me who would have to deal with that. It's sort of the sorts of people you don't see in journalism as much. I mean, do I have that right? That it's sort of
I'm just imagining like a bunch of like Jesse Singles outside of Home Depot, just waiting to get picked up for
their takes.
But yeah, some daily takes.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you click the little bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And if you really like the video, you can even support We the Internet TV on Patreon. Check out the link in the description below.